When we're out here improving our ground, we really need to look at it both from the macro and the micro standpoint. Macro, always design a plan before you start making any improvements. That means, how are the deer using my property now? What works well for topography? What do I have for cover? What do I have for food, for water? All that type of good stuff. Analyze what you have and come up with a macro approach. How can I get the deer to use my ground, wasting more time than they are now, in the way I want them to? That takes a big picture view. That takes looking at what the neighbors have, what they don't have, what I have, what I don't have, and then try to fill in the gaps. Take our weaknesses, jack them up through the roof, raise them up to strengths, and at the same time take our strengths and put them on steroids, all while laying out these improvements in a way that causes deer to flow through our ground, not just move randomly, but have very easily understandable patterns on how they're going to use our ground. That's the macro view, and frankly, as I said, you really need to consider what's going on in the neighbors in order to come up with a real sound macro plan. Now, once we've done that, now it comes down to micro planning. What I mean by that is, don't go out, put in a food plot. Geez, I really need a food plot here. If I had a food plot just 20 yards, 50 yards, 70 yards in off that ag field, all the deer would go ahead and stage up there in the afternoons before they go out to the field after dark. It works great, especially if that large ag field happens to be a neighbor's, and then in the morning they should hit this nice little staging kill plot before, going back to bed. I can slip in, slip out. That's all awesome. But don't go ahead and put in that food plot and then figure out where I'm going to put my stand. That doesn't work well. Instead, do the reverse. Go into that area, find that tree, find that location you're going to set up. Then go ahead and build those improvements around it. That micro view when it comes to actual stand placement is very, very important. The other thing to consider in this is, how am I going to get in? How am I going to get out? That is huge. That is huge. Oftentimes, in the macro plan, geez, a food plot would seem to be good here, but if I shift it over here just a little bit, I can still take advantage of the flow between bedding and feeding, and I can go ahead and slip in and slip out undetected. So first look at it a macro view and then a micro.
Growing Big is brought to you by Wildlife Research Center, the gold standard. Reconyx, see what you've been missing. Antler King, bigger bucks, healthier deer. The Heater Bodysuit, you stay warm or your money back. Furminator, the best food plot implement on earth. Redneck Blinds, the best hunting blinds on the planet. Chestnut Hill Nursery and Orchards. And foodplotsfordeer.com, planning your habitat improvements and improving your hunting.
When it comes to habitat improvements, you gotta have a plan, and your plan is really a macro plan. Now you have to incorporate the neighbors, what's going on in their ground, what's going on in mine, how are the deer using the property, and come up with a general flow for how you want the deer to use that property in a way that works out best for us as hunters. Okay. Now when it comes to making individual improvements, if you're going to be hunting them, you have to look at it at a micro level. Instead, where am I putting that stand? Where am I putting that stand now? How can I build around that in a way that creates safe wind directions that I can get in and out, and that's highly effective? Use both the macro and the micro approach, and you're going to be a lot further ahead.